I'm Colin Burrows, and this is the Woodstein Media Podcast. This podcast is adapted from interviews conducted for articles on Woodstein.ca, and it is produced on the lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, Anishinaabe, and Odawa peoples. Episode 1 features an interview conducted with Joe Amero, a social worker in the Toronto shelter system with a personal interest in harm reduction, not only based on his years using drugs, but also on losing several people close to him to overdose, including his brother. In this episode, you will hear a couple of songs by Hobo Banditos, the hip-hop band Joe and his brother Harry were members of. This podcast and Woodstein Media are independently produced journalism that you can support through Patreon or by donating through PayPal at Wood-stein.ca. WOOD-STEIN.ca. Thanks for your interest and support. I hope you enjoy this podcast, and I hope it might motivate you to get off your ass and make a difference in the world. Thanks for listening. You're straight-laced, clean, and a family man now, but let's go back to your connection to narcotics. Were you using opioids yourself? What was your thing back before you were clean?
I was a straight-up heroin addict for 10 years. And at the latter end of that, it was like opioids, morphine and stuff, just through sheer availability, geographical location. So I'd have to do odd jobs in Peterborough to get the morphine. Used to clean up dog shit in the backyard of the strange lady on a sleep apnea machine, and she'd pay me in morphine, and I'd get extra if I could shoot up her daughter, who was not a minor. She was already had an established habit and was a sex worker and doing her own thing. She was quite grown, but I'd get extra if I'd shoot up her daughter in her kitchen while they watched Judge Judy in the living room. And it was surreal, right? Well, there was this other guy, old Michael. He's passed. We used to go to his place, and if we'd shoot him up, he'd give us pills too. He was a cancer patient, so he'd have all the good reds and all the strong morphine. So he'd hook you up, and he'd just want company too. He's a lonely old dude, you know. And you know, he was a queer man, so like some of the guys would get a lot of extra pills. I'd just shoot him up. Yeah. You know. Heroin was heroin for pretty much 10 years straight. Through that, I would say that heroin is definitely a gateway drug. So you got to be careful. So we know that's going in the story. Right? That's a good quote. You know, your introduction to like a pretty well-established underworld, right? So you've got all the drugs. So you're, you know the other realm of the stimulants and the coke and meth and all that stuff, right? And once you're already in the throes of a heroin addiction, I mean, it's not, I preferred to stay down, but I mean, it just led to a lot of experimentation with other drugs. Like I was primarily into down. I liked that buzz. I could maintain that. I was fine with it, and I was functioning. I never worked more in my life than when I was a drug addict. Like I had like 3 jobs, because I like to do a lot of drugs, right? So I needed a lot of money, so it was motivating. What? The other shit was like, forget it. I couldn't get my dope one day. Missed my methadone, so it was like my dealer only had coke, and I it was never my thing. I never even sniffed it before, but I was a full-fledged professional IV drug user, so I was like, just give me some coke and I'll pass the hours at least until I can get my drink in the morning. And so I shot the coke, and then 10 months later I was sleeping in the park. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So you got to be careful if you're going to do heroin, because you might have some negative side effects. I mean, you really got to you got to choose your own adventure. Some people, I know people did down and never touch up. We're not interested. But then once you play, then it's like you can go up, because you can come down, right? Enter the speedball This is cocaine mixed with heroin, the traditional.
Yeah.
Now they're doing it with meth and fentanyl and everything else. This is none of my business, but in my day it was cocaine and heroin. So you'd fly up on the coke and have the dope to come down, right? So you wouldn't be so afraid to go so high when you knew you could get low.
I'm not confident in my wording of the next question because it felt like I was possibly denigrating some drug users, which was not my intention. But I wanted to get Joe to discuss lasting effects on his life of his drug use. Looking at you now, you look like you're functioning pretty well in life. There's a lot of people, and you probably know a lot of people, but there's a lot of people who end up so damaged from it, and they can't function like...
I've managed to maintain all my faculties, right? I experimented with all the drugs. I did a huge hallucination acid test for years and years and years. I think I'm a bit of an anomaly in that respect, because I know I've done more acid than I've ever heard of anybody doing. And I'm not talking about bathtub strychnine blotter acid, but I'm talking about like crystal 50 and like the real LSD and like liquid and like, you know, mass quantities, right? And we went farther than anyone, you know, and I've seen people do a lot less, and you know, they're fried, right? You call that fried. They're fried. They fried their brain. They're fucked. They're old acid burnout, right? And the same with dope. Old dopers, a lot of them are just, they could even get clean and still be fried. But what's clean, right? We don't say clean anymore because you weren't dirty. But I mean like free from it. But what like replacement therapy are they into, right? Are they like, have they been on methadone for 20 years? Is that they're just like walking like with methadone in all their bone marrow? You know what I mean? Or are they on like antidepressants and antipsychotics? Like I know they tried to prescribe me Seroquel when I was coming off the drugs, and I know that that's an antipsychotic and would change my brain chemistry permanently if I took it too long. Good for to come down after a bender, but I wasn't going to refill my prescription, especially when I could sell it and get more dope. There's a lot to be said for that. Like I'm fully functioning. I'm a professional in my field. I work. I have I have a car and a house and a family.
Did you go to school for your field then?
Yeah.
Did you come out of it all and then go to school after?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I started working in the field and then kind of went back and went to school to give me the credentials to do the jobs I was already doing. I don't know why. It's just like a personal thing of achievement.
Yeah. Where'd you go to school?
I went to Humber College social work program, and I did my SSW, and then I had kids, so it was like I couldn't afford to go any further. University classes or more. So I never got my bachelor's and never got my master's. But I never needed it because I had PhD already and lived experience. Because I could talk the talk and walk the walk. I knew what it was all about anyway. So all their theory, and I could read all those same books and go get a piece of paper that tells me I'm a master of the universe. But we already, lived and died that life, 100 times. But what I wanted to mention was like, I present as functioning and all that, and make a living, and I could even be an ally and an advocate now for people in the situation I used to be in, and give back and help. But what you don't see is post-traumatic stress disorder, survivor guilt, and these things you carry with you, and they're invisible, right? They present in their own ways, but I mean, it's you never know what someone's going through.
I want to go into some of those.
Yeah.
It's hit really close to home. Harry and friends. And
yeah, James, most recently. Harry was my little brother.
Yeah.
And my best friend in life, right? We had a band together. We worked together. We're partners in crime. And he died of a fatal overdose of fentanyl in his heroin.
Okay, like it was one of those cases where the drugs weren't clean. He wasn't expecting the... Well, I mean,
No.
you weren't there.
I wasn't there,
But
I read the autopsy report, and I know there was fentanyl in the heroin. And I never knew him to do fentanyl. I had heard... We'd been apart. He was living in Alberta, working on the pipeline, and I was here. So we'd been apart. We had a bit of a falling out a little while before he died. Luckily, we reconciled before the fact, and we're speaking again, but I knew he was dipping into this fentanyl with his girlfriend and stuff, and I was like, don't fuck with that.
he was dipping into the...
You know, they were trying it, right?
Okay.
Because that's what it is now. People don't even want heroin, they want fentanyl. So warning him against that, but what he actually ended up dying from was buying heroin and smoking it, and there was fentanyl in it, and it was a lethal dose, and he overdosed and died.
So that ties into what
It's a shitty lottery.
Dolph is doing out there trying to get
clean drugs. That's the answer. They've got the answer. It's the best action. Drug User Liberation Front is the best action this country's ever seen. The best. I mean, it's right there. It's a no-brainer, and they just fucking were bold enough to just do it. And that was the whole point. All you have to do is just do this. And they showed them right in front of the cop shop and everything. Just give them clean drugs.
The Drug User Liberation Front, also known as DOLF, formed in response to the mounting overdose deaths in British Columbia and across Canada to provide tangible solutions to the devastating crisis caused by prohibition. Through its Compassion Club, DOLF has been taking action to provide a safe supply of drugs which have been tested to be unadulterated by fentanyl.
Now we're going to have a bit of reverence. Everyone who has passed away has made this moment possible. From this tent over here, we are distributing a safe supply of drugs. And this is a real safe supply of drugs. The points of drugs you will get from the boxes being distributed from that tent have been tested. This means that you are at no risk of overdosing on fentanyl from the drugs we have given you in those boxes. And we want this model to be legislated so that it can happen all over the place so our friends and family stop dying. The event is about love. It is about keeping our community safe. It is about preventing death. It is about showing people that drug users absolutely have the right to be alive and to stay safe and to be able to consume the substances that they choose to without passing away to the pallid death of overdose. A shameful thing. This government, this colonial government, has condemned our community to that fate for 5 fucking years. And now we say, enough is enough. Safe drugs for everyone!
Like they say, they can't afford to do it on a national scale, so they do it as an action and say this is an example of what you can do. They've made the model of what this country needs to do. Their Compassion Club model and their actions will echo through history. It's the best action I've ever seen in my life. So I'm on this end of the country. What can you do? You buy a hoodie, you know what I mean? Or you could donate to the Compassion Club, do what you can that way and get the word out about them at least, right? Because it's like the real deal. People are stupid. They need repetition. They need to hear it and hear it and hear it. And just they need to know it's not going away.
Back to what we were talking about with the people in your life being hit by this.
Well, there's my brother overdosed. And the thing about it is you see right away the stigma attached to it when it's an overdose. Like I know my mom, she didn't want anyone to know right away. Don't tell anybody what happened. So you respect that because it's your mom, right? But that's when I was trying to deal with the aftermath of his death and my grieving process. As an artist, I started to write it down and started to build my story and then started to build a show, right? I was going to make a one-person show called Blood, but I wouldn't do it without her permission. Hers and my sister's. I told them, look, there's a lot we can help by telling this story. I showed them that they don't need to be ashamed that it was an overdose that killed him. We should tell everybody, everybody should know. Fight the stigma. Just own it. Like, yeah, that's what killed him. And I got their blessing, so I was able to do my show, and it helped a lot of people especially me, just to tell the story. That's such a huge part of that death. Like, and the sad part is when a friend dies nowadays, you just assume right away, oh, it was an overdose. That's the stigma that's so strong in the family. Like, it's the guilt and shame that's been attached to it, but it shouldn't be. It's just a fact of life. Hundreds of people have died since. Hundreds of people will die tomorrow.
The hobo works and wanders. The tramp dreams and wanders. He's the intellectual. And of course the bum, well, he just drinks and wanders. And that's that.
All right, now listen. So let me tell you how it works, son. Your government hates you. You just work until it hurts while they fucking rape you. Fingers to the bone while they steady negate you. Just do what you're shown and wait for a breakthrough. Every day's a maze for the mice to get through. Little piece of cheese just to pacify you. Life's passing by you from here to the bayou. It's not a fucking riddle, it's as simple as haiku. Thinking back to high school, the things that they taught you. Don't be late, do your work, test well, or fuck you. Growing up crooked, fuck this straight and narrow. And no, I don't know, no Joe Amero. Some of us are living but in prison with the problem. Hurting that we're turning to the streets to try and solve them. Clash up with the purple hobos turning up the volume. Sighting out of mind, the spinning system keeps revolving.
Been in and out of jail ever since I'm a kid. And I was kicked out your schools, needing ready to live. And I was living on the street with the clothes on my back. And eating nothing, wanting nothing outside of this pack. I've been a drug dealer and a drug user too. Seen a couple dollars, but I blew to a few. I seen fat sacks way back. I backpacked the train tracks, clean draft taps like Ajax. Believe that, cause they facts. Just cause they take away your child, it doesn't make you a man. You take the bad with the good and then you follow your plan. We down by law, we be down by the man. And they can take away my freedom, but they can't stop the jam. Hobo Banditos, man, that's what I am. And you won't catch me on my knees, cause I know how to stand. I squeeze my fist so hard, I think I'm breaking my hand.
Some of us are living but in prison with the problem. Hurting that we're turning to the streets to try and solve them. Clash up with the purple hobos turning up the volume. Sighting out of mind, the spinning system keeps revolving.
Never trying to behave, always trying to be brave. Coasting with the C grade, see my world decay. Drug abuse, rotten tooth, gotta find a clean way for income. And not another crime to sin from. I don't choose the pain, so I medicate. And I don't feel the rain, cause I meditate. Just like a broken limb, yo, I said it straight. And no one vote for him, but now he the head of state. Life keep motoring, and I ain't got the head to wait. The weight that I'm shouldering, there's no time to hesitate. You lay in bed with snakes, you're gonna get bit. You throw a dog in the cage and make a fight in a pit, man. You see the rage when it's loose on the strip. They don't see a wage, so the youth gonna flip and stack chips with the gauge tucked under their coat. And they gun on their hip, man, murder she wrote.
Some of us are living but in prison with the problem. Hurting that we're turning to the streets to try and solve them. Clash up with the purple hobos turning up the volume. Sighting out of mind, the spinning system keeps revolving.
This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. Turn the volume up on your radio and point the speakers out of your window. Then call your neighbors and tell them to do the same. The Hobo Banditos have a message for the world, and their voices will be heard no matter what the cost.
That was Behavioral Problems by Hobo Banditos off their 2010 album, The Peasantry Inquisition, available on SoundCloud. From your lived experience, from everything that you've gone through, how does that connect to the work you're doing now?
It's a direct connection. I've seen firsthand, unfortunately, I know what a bereaved mother looks like. Mm-hmm. And that's something you never want to see. You definitely don't want to see your own mother go through it. And then once you know what it looks like and how deep that really is, you certainly don't want anyone's mother to go through it. You wouldn't wish that on your worst enemy. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's unnatural for a parent to outlive their child. That's a definition of a tragedy. I mean, there's nothing more heartbreaking than that. And then to watch someone try and pick up the pieces after that and move on, and it's fucking mortifying. It's devastating. It's all those heavy things personified. I mean, it's the real deal. It really is. It's just so intense and really, really just heartbreaking. I mean, I've got that going for me, so that'll give me a little push. Like where I work in overdose prevention sites, and that gives me some drive. And like if I can stop that from happening, that's huge. And I'll fight for that, because nobody needs to see that. Nobody needs to experience that. And these people who live on the streets, are involved in the streets, are no different than anyone else. They have mothers and fathers and families who love and care for them and will be broken when they're ripped away. Mm-hmm. So that's a big drive for me. And then, having the experience myself, like I know it inside and out. I know dope sick. I know the bullshit with the doctors and dealing with your scripts, and I know what it's like. So I'm a pretty good advocate for people in that way, because it's like I'm a little more relatable. I don't even have to divulge or give too much self-disclosure about my own story. People just know. The real will recognize the real. A guy, when I'm talking to a guy, he knows I'm not bullshit. He knows I know. And that there's relief in that alone. And maybe even hope provided for someone, like, well, this guy fucking has been there. So that motivates people and inspires some people, and myself included, right? Better me than some dipshit who just read it in a book. You know what I mean? It's not going to help. Pause it here. I don't want to misquote this man, because he's like the most important, one of the most important people in history. But it's exactly what I want to say right in this moment. Hampton.
Fred Hampton?
Yeah, he said theory's cool, but theory with no practice ain't shit. And the kids are good, the younger kids are, I'm not taking anything away from theory or academia. It's, of course, right? Yeah. Look at the pros, like listen to Dr. Gabor Mate talking about trauma, and there's an educated man, and like these people know what's up, right? They're fantastic. But I mean, if you haven't been there, sometimes people don't want to hear it, right? You read it in a book, and now this is cognitive behavioral therapy. No thanks, right? I'd rather talk to someone who's who knows what it is in their soul.
Okay, I want to go back to Blood, the way you dealt with Harry's death. Mm-hmm. The performance side of your life.
My phone rings. Unknown number. I take it back into the black with my whiskey. The officer identifies himself, and I cut right to the chase. I tell him I'm your brother, and I want to know what happened. I tell him I need to know everything he knows, and I assure him that I can take it. He takes a deep breath and begins. It says he pinged your cell phone at the urgency of Maggie's missing persons report. Your cell pinged right off a tower in your neighborhood, so he went to your address. How's that for police work? You can hear your TV, but gets no response. So off the record, he gains access to your unit with some firm encouragement applied to the door. He makes his way into your place, calling your name. He stops, and I can hear him begin to cry. I tell him it's okay. And he tells me that's when he found you. You're sitting in an easy chair, face down on the coffee table in front of you. And the table was covered in blood from the impact. He says you have a notebook out and a pen and appear to be writing what he calls a nice love poem. A glass pipe and a small baggie of white powder are collected and sent along with your body to the medical examiner's office in Calgary. I thank him for being so respectful. Tell him you mean the world to me. And he believes me. He tells me how sorry he is for our loss, and I believe him. So thank you for making me share one of the most genuine and truly emotional moments of my entire life with a fucking cop.
Okay, blood was hot. It was a hot ticket, right? We sold it out. We sold out the Bad Dog Theater. I was a featured player in the Bad Dog Theater, right? At the time, and that had just ended. So I had my in there, and I used their theater, and it was great. It was it's about Harry. He was a bit of a bad dog, right? Yeah. What better place to do it? So we sold out 2 shows, and I was lucky enough. I had friends from the Second City Training Center Conservatory. We did the sketch conservatory where you get to go to the main stage. It's a whole big deal, right? And I worked in my conservatory with Dana Puttycombe and Kate Fenton. They're awesome. They do all kinds of TV and film and shit, and theater and stuff. So Dana agreed to direct it, so she started working with me and really helped me hash it out, right? Because I had written basically my whole life story, and she did like dramaturgy and brought it down to an hour theater show. She worked hard to get me there. And then she got one of the 5 jobs in improv, where she got to go on a cruise ship and do improv. So she had to leave. So Kate Fenton stepped in, who was her partner and her buddy, right? And my buddy. So she came in as director. So I got to work with them, and Kate's amazing, and she really finished it off. So we did the show, and it was 2 sold out shows a week apart. It's online. You can watch it online, and you can see it that way. It's not the same, but it's there. Mm-hmm. And it was a hit. It was a cathartic experience for me, just the whole process of working with them, and then putting my feelings on paper, and then bringing them to performance, and like, what do I want to say? What do I want to say, right? Like, and then saying it. I'm still, when I think about that time and doing those performances, I was just stunned about it. I just kind of went into a different world and just did it. I don't know how I did it, but I pulled it off, right? And we did it, and people loved it. People messaged me for years.
In 2021, Joe took on the massive task of pulling together Drugs, the musical, the Telethon. He brought together musicians, comedians, and other artists and professionals working in the field of harm reduction to raise money for organizations coast to coast to coast here in Canada.
Troches. You don't know me unless you're from the Penetang Midland area, in which case you might have seen me at the Maple Tavern having my bacon and eggs every Sunday for the past 30 some odd years. Doesn't matter. We're here to talk about Drugs, the musical, the Telethon. August 31st, it's more than 24 hours. It's going to run for a full day. So at midnight, we're going to start right away, and we're going to stream live, and we're talking all things drugs. Harm reduction saves lives, is what they tell me. I don't know a lot about this, much like you. I'm clueless. You're not clueless. That's me. I speak only for myself. I'm clueless and foolish and shoeless. Much like the Canadian government, I'm a complete joke. But you know what's not a joke is harm reduction. And we're going to talk all things harm reduction. We're going to have all kinds of guests and people with lived experience and working on the front lines, talking about all the great things that they're doing in the realm of harm reduction. I don't really know what it is. I'm basically going to speak to the misconceptions of the whole subject. We're going to talk about self-care. We're going to talk about police. We're going to talk about government policy. We're going to talk everything. Sex work is in there. What a treat. There's something for everyone. I think there's even going to be an elephant. The phone lines are open now, so call up and donate today. 100% of the proceeds are going to benefit 14 harm reduction initiatives from coast to coast across the entire nation of Canada, including ACNL, AQPSUD, Avenue B, the Ally Centre of Cape Breton, Blood Ties 4 Directions Centre, Hamilton AIDS Network, Kamatsiaktat Helpline, man, it's a harm reduction network, Mom Stop the Harm, Prairie Harm Reduction, Sunar Turning Point, Toronto Indigenous Harm Reduction, and Yellowknife Women's Society Yellowknife Street Outreach. So come on down. Look, you don't know me, I don't know you. Doesn't matter. Let's get to know each other. August 31st, 2021, International Overdose Awareness Day. Drugs, the musical, the Telethon. There is hope. We're banging pots and pans. We're barking in the grassroots. Call in. Donate now. Please. Harm reduction saves lives. You know what it is. You've lost somebody to this crisis already. This is out of control. We need to do something about it. So tell everyone you know. Tell it on the mountain. August 31st, Drugs the Musical, the Telethon. We are spreading the word of harm reduction because harm reduction saves lives. And we've got an amazing collection of musicians and comedians and people with lived experience and people working on the front line that know this stuff inside and out, and they're going to give you the straight goods. This isn't some hokey pokey turn yourself around bologna sandwich. This is the real deal. This is Drugs the Musical, the Telethon. There's no elephant.
Work you're doing in the shelter system that outweighs your performance like now?
Well, in COVID, I stopped doing improv because the theater shut down. And when it started to lift back up, I didn't feel good about crowds, and I didn't feel comfortable enough to go back in and do improv. So my troupe, which was pretty prolific, the Pepperoni Pizza Cats, played all the festival circuit, and we had our own monthly show, and we never got back together. We did one sketch show at the beginning of COVID, and that was really the swan song. There's just now a couple of the key members are starting to message me and rumble about wanting to get back together and put the band back together, but I don't know if I'm going back to that. I want to do film and theater, more and more stuff like that.
You've been connected to people all across the country doing similar work. Is there kind of a network because of that?
100%. It's a small world after all, right? Yeah. And harm reduction is just a small town in that small world, and everyone's connected, and you'll see these key players popping up over and over and over, right? It's the same people doing the work because they're essentially screaming into a vacuum. It is so connected, and people are there to help. Like I reach out to people professionally for advice and guidance in my job, and there's so many people out there that have been doing it for so much longer. I hid from it for years because I was on drugs, and then I hid from it for years because I didn't want to divulge my entire history while I was trying to get into the field. I had some pride, and I didn't want to be the junkie. I didn't want to be the ex-junkie. And then after Harold died, I really hid away from it because I didn't want to talk about drugs. I didn't want to think about drugs, although that's all I was thinking about. But I remember after I cremated him and brought his remains to my mom, I had to go to work the next day, and I was at a stoplight realizing that I had headed up the harm reduction program, and what I had to do on my first day back to work was make 100 crack kits and 100 needle kits. And I was like, fuck me, I do not feel up to this. And I looked to the right, and on the electrical box someone had put some crude graffiti of an HA, which spells ha. So it was laughing at me, but it's also my brother's initials, Harold Amero. And it was like, I could hear him laughing at me, and I was like, that's not funny. But then I could hear him say, yeah, it's kind of funny. And I realized, yeah, it is kind of funny. And then I went to work.
No one that close has ever, I've never had to experience that. And
statistically, you will. That's what I've been telling people. If you haven't been affected by this personally yet, statistically, you will. That's why it's in the news, because, the judges' kids are dying now. It's not just population control in the ghetto and their little war on drugs. It's like cops' kids and cops and you're not just robbers, right? Harm reduction used to be giving out condoms at gay pride parade. You know what I mean? And that was considered like a radical action. The old school will have no choice but to go extinct like the dinosaurs that they are and let the new school come in. A lot of organizations are faith-based, and they're not keen on harm reduction. Even though, a lot of people say I don't believe in harm reduction, I'm a Christian. And that's the funniest thing I ever heard in my life. Because then I say, well, then you know all about the golden rule. And then let them percolate on that for a drip. Because it's the same in every religion. Just fucking help people, asshole. That's what your Bible says. Verbatim. A little bit of help helps a lot. And if you can help, that's my motto, is help, don't hinder.
Yeah.
Because help don't hinder, right? And you should help, don't hinder, right? Just fucking help. As my mom always said, if you can help someone, then you help them.
Mm-hmm.
Who the fuck are you not to help someone if you can help them? You help people along the way. That's the only way. We all need help. No matter what we're doing, what world we're in, everybody needs help. Nepotism, I mean, all these assholes on Bay Street and, you know, Wall Street, and it's all nepotism and bullshit, and that's the way of the world. And Hollywood, and who do you know, and when can you start, and, you know, that's help. But they think, you know, like you didn't make it on your own salt with your trust fund and from your dad's hedge fund company. That's help. Mm-hmm. So you might want to turn around and pepper some of that back our way. You know, Elon Musk. What the fuck have you done for harm reduction?
Is there anything else, a message for the people from Joe Amero on this subject that you really know you didn't say there and you think knock people on the head with some message?
All the great art comes from suffering. All of it. You know, most of your heroes are dead from drugs. Your Jimmys and your Kurts and your Janices, and, you know, the list goes on forever, right? This will touch everybody. So be prepared, you know? Do something. Do something. Yep. Say something and help fight the stigma of it. Make it a part of the daily conversation. Talk about it. And if you lose someone from it, fucking own it and let it be heard. You know, don't be ashamed. Tell it on the mountain. It's going to help somebody. You know, everybody's story is going to help someone else. Don't give up, whatever you're doing. Arts, it's the same for anything. Even if you're trying to live, you know, you're battling an addiction, or you're trying to break in whatever, with your band, you know, just don't give up. Just keep going. Be the last person standing. And it might be lonely, but you wouldn't have given up. Don't give up. Live and tell your tale. It's worth it. We want to hear it. We want to hear your story.
Yeah, fucking dynamo, motherfucker. Hobo Bandito, motherfucker. Yeah. I'm from the place where glass turns rock to ash. Call up pipe dreams, locks where life don't last. Lime green herb got me blizzard like ice cream. Blur my eyes, now I need shots of Visine. My team, Eva call it army of darkness. Chainsaws, sawed-offs, leave your body in parts. It's the needles that break needles, even spinning our graves. Style fresher than a hot shower, shit in the shade. I make a classic every day, you just piss it away. And then I'm hitting the pave. Want the street chopper beat, straight business and spades. Fitting body and mind to stay sharp as blades. Keep my name out your mouth like it's hard to say. This heart is great, this artist made. Put his crew on and take the week off like holidays. New style, more fat than extra holidays. Now I need extra bread, give this boss a raise. Yeah, Dynamo, CEO, act like you know. Fucking twitchy titch, biatch.
I feel like Dave from the smoke shop who strung himself up. He got tired of living life, so he fucking gave it up. You got a fucking mouth on you, you like to push your luck. I'll tell you what you wanna do, shut the fuck up. Hire prostitutes and killer pimps, fuck that unemployment. I found my sensibilities, I find myself annoying. Said it and I meant it, psychopathic, schizophrenic. Fuck around with the demented, then you'll find out what I meant, kid. Regular unleaded, hope you live to regret it. And don't you dare forget it, that the land you live on's rented. It's hot in the kitchen, battling addiction. I don't believe a word you say, there's pulp in the fiction. Every time I turn around and rubbing on my culture, circling around the shit like low-flying vultures. Fence-sitting motherfuckers hang around the border. Quit rubbing on my culture and that's a fucking order. Yeah, you wanna know why? Cause fuck you.
Yeah, fuck you, man. Harry the motherfucking hand, bitch. The darkness is vivid, the heartless diminish. And regardless, I'm livid. I can't fight it, I live it. I light it, then I hit it. I write it, then I spit it. I'm old and I'm jaded, and I got me the blues. My soul be faded like my first tattoos. You name it, I did it. Every minute I was in it. Pointing VCRs for the C&E. I got my first CDs from a B&E. It was Easy E and EPMD. And I painted up my leather with a big PE. Now it's an old thing. Back then it was glow rings and factory alarms. We could throw down in the streets cause cats wasn't armed. All these kids thinking they're criminals couldn't steal their cable. Every white kid in the burbs has got a turntable. Could've run a whore and they're claiming a stable. Saying they able and slinging the cane. You as fake as a fable, you fucking insane. HPC bitch, step off my terrain. You jump in my boxcar, you get thrown off of the train. High five, Billicle, bitch.
That was HFU by Hobo Banditos off their 2010 album, The Peasantry Inquisition, and you can find that on SoundCloud. Thanks for listening. Thanks to Joe Amero for the interview and all the great work he does. Harm reduction saves lives. Check the description wherever you are listening to this for more links to more information, or visit Wood-stein.ca. That's WOOD-STEIN.ca. You can support this podcast by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Colin Burrows. Thanks again.